Welcome back, Jill Sweetman. And for those in the audience who haven't met you before, you're regarded as the brain whisperer, which I love. You're a neuroscience specialist in education, learning and development. Now, Jill, I heard you the other day in an interview online, and you were talking, it was a quote by Hugh Mackay. It was something like the answer
Oh,
closes the
one of my
question.
favourite, Robert.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you remember that, because the number of times I've quoted that over several decades, I would love $1 for every time I've done it. It's, sometimes in life you hear a couple of pithy sentences and they stay with you forever because somehow it just resonates. And that was the one. Hugh Mackay said, "The answer closes the question. Stay with the question."
Mm.
The answer closes the question. Stay with the question. And how often in life have we perhaps even wanted to ask a further question, or indeed we've accepted the first answer
Yes.
when it
Yes.
hasn't been appropriate, or it hasn't been
Or
right
it didn't
for us?
include all the information that
Yeah,
person had. They gave you a bit, not realizing that they gave you 10%, not realizing there was this other 90% they needed to tell you about. And you didn't know because you just went, oh, okay, right, okay, done,
that's
Yeah,
right.
that happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yes. And I always like to think that we're going beyond the superficial, that we're going beyond the surface. I think today
Yes,
we live life, if you like, a kilometre wide and maybe only a centimetre deep, when there's so
yes.
much more that really we either should know or wish to know, or whether it be valuable to know. So
And
I love,
questioning is the key to
oh,
drill down.
yes, and to be willing not to take the first answer. I think we live in an
Right.
environment today where we rely on people using their expertise or simply their insight. A lot of inventions, as you will know, through centuries have been done because of necessity.
Yes.
So the more we're willing to go into deep thinking, into perhaps even our reading, what are we reading into the words that are there, in order for us to be chewing over what it is we're hearing or seeing or observing, so that we can come up with something that is more beneficial and certainly of our own uniqueness.
And do you think when you're working with your corporate clients, and you encourage that, as you say, deep thinking, I sort of think of it as drilling down with asking more questions,
Mhm.
that sometimes because of that speed of, busyness, and we've got so much to do and we've got this big project, that they're taking the first answer that
Yeah.
comes up, and someone could be sitting in that group, maybe not as assertive as another, and sitting, oh, like, they haven't thought about this or they haven't thought about that. So how do you encourage, even with your students and your corporates, how do you encourage, like, so it's not groupthink, it's not one person's
Mhm.
view, that you actually get everyone to contribute? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so look, that's a great thought of yours, and it's so real in business today that I remember being involved with an organisation that was undergoing enormous change, and the thinking, if you like, the group think was such that, oh no, they being, the managers, or they being the government, or whoever it might be, couldn't possibly do X, Y, or Z, when in fact they had full liberty to do that. And
Mm.
I remember I held a workshop. To say I had my heart in my mouth. I was fairly brave at the time, but I held a workshop and I called it The Impossibles, because I realized that not enough was being observed or even considered. And
Yes,
of the 10 items, about 6 or 7 of them actually came to fruition.
yes,
And I think,
yes.
the the speed of life today and the necessity to make decisions, fast decisions, can often stand in our way because we're not looking at all the implications, the short, the medium, the long term ramifications of any decision that we make or we sanction.
And many of them are short term rather than that, looking at the longer view. I think that happens on boards as well. decisions are made for the immediate, we'll fix this problem,
Yes.
not realizing that this problem could lead to this really big problem down the, 6 months away that this one triggered, but we didn't think it through.
That's right.
Do you see much of that with
your
clients?
Well, I do. Having
They'll probably get you in to fix that problem 6 months down the track.
That would be nice. And as you and I both know, to be fixing a problem is very different to be mitigating it in the first instance.
Yes, that's true.
Just as it is with health as well. But I concur. Having sat on a board myself, you're mindful of the legacy that you impart.
Yes.
And the decisions that you make on behalf of others. It's a different ball game again, isn't it, Robin?
Yes.
And us both having our own businesses, we know with whom the line stops.
Sure. And I think, just on the point of boards, that in my involvement with boards, it's even though two strong people may disagree, the decision is always what is for the good of the organisation. That it's okay, we don't have to agree here. We're entitled to our opinions, and they're based on whatever.
Yeah.
But what is for the best for this organisation? And I think sometimes those short-term decisions don't take the long-term view, the long view of what's really good for the organisation. This might fix today's problem,
yes,
but the pipeline 6 months from now will be clogged up because of the decision we're making now. So it all comes back to those questionings that you're saying. Just give us that quote again from Hugh Mackay before we close.
Sure. The answer closes the question. Stay with the question.
Fantastic. Okay, we look forward to more questioning tomorrow. Thanks, Jill.
It's a pleasure, Robin.